Good morning, good afternoon, and good day wherever you may be joining us from. Welcome to another edition of the Digital Download, which is
The
the
longest
longest running
weekly
weekly
talk show.
business talk show
on
on
LinkedIn Live.
Now globally syndicated on the IBGN Radio
Network.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. Today, we're unpacking the entrepreneurial myth of self-employment. We have a special guest arriving, Cheryl Scott, to help us with the discussion. A seasoned career coach and regional manager for PPLSI, Cheryl has an extensive background in guiding career transitions, along with her own personal journey through the entrepreneurial landscape. But before we bring Cheryl on, let's vamp. Let's go around and introduce everyone.
Okay,
and while
can
we're doing
someone
that,
explain to me this word vamp? Because I've heard it like a whole bunch of times in the past 24 hours, and I actually have no idea what it means.
Stall for time.
Stall
Our
for
guest
time,
isn't
okay.
in the green room yet, so we want to make sure we give her all the time necessary to get here.
Got it.
We've got some guests in the audience already. Robert Mattson, morning, afternoon, folks.
Hi, Robert.
Hi, Robert.
Bob Britton, friend of the show. Aloha, folks.
Hi, Bob.
Says,
Bob.
Hi, Bob.
You've got me up early today.
How early is it there?
Well, where is there?
I was going to say, because if it's Hawaii, then it's very early.
Right. And Robert confirms, vamp is filler.
Thanks,
which
friend.
I think we're doing all right with right now.
Is this like a Gen Z phrase, or is this always
No,
been a thing?
it's an old music.
Do I look Gen Z to you?
It's an old musical phrase. And what
Okay.
would happen is that when they were waiting for people to change costumes or whatever, the pianist would vamp, would make something up and just play some music that would kind of fill time until the stage act was ready.
Okay.
And the good
Now I
news
feel
is our
informed.
guest is here in the green room.
Ah, fantastic.
We
All right.
successfully vamped. Good job.
There we go.
Fantastic.
So
Fantastic.
let's go around the Oh, did he say vamptastic?
He did, yeah.
All right. It's too early for this. It really is.
It is.
Excellent.
So vamptastic.
Let's go around and have some introductions. And while we're doing that, why don't you in the audience reach out to a friend, ping them, and have them join us. We strive to make the digital download an interactive experience. Audience participation is highly engaged, as you can tell. With that, Adam, would you kick us off, please?
Hello, everybody. I'm Adam Gray. I'm co-founder of DLA Ignite. And I'm very sorry for everyone in America that's up early. Or maybe they're not up early. Maybe it's just us that it's an hour earlier for. Anyway, I'm delighted to be here.
Excellent. Thank you. Tim.
Yes, thank you. I'm Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. And I'm famous for writing the book, Social Selling Techniques Through Influence Buyers and Changemakers.
Thank you very much. Tracy.
Good morning, folks. I'm Tracy Borison, founder of TLB Coaching and Events, a proud partner of DLA Ignite, which I'm so excited, you guys. You'll see it later on my LinkedIn profile. I got my certificate. It's very exciting for me.
Yeah!
I know, and you know what?
Congratulations.
Oh, fireworks. Thanks, Adam.
Pleasure.
And also, I just found out that Tim Hughes is coming to Calgary. So
I am.
guess what? We're going to have an in-person networking event. So, folks, if you're in Calgary, you're watching this, hit me up and come to that because it's going to be fun.
I hope you feel honoured. He's going all the way to Calgary to see you.
I'm going to Calgary to see you, Tracy.
I'm very excited about it because last year I ditched him in Vancouver.
You stood me up in Vancouver.
I
Yes.
did.
He at least has forgiven you now. He was crying for quite some time, though.
I'm sure he was. Okay, that's me.
Okay, fantastic.
And Tracy
Thank you,
is
Tracy.
famous. I'm going to say this for the people on the radio, is that she's famous because she has pink headphones.
I am famous for my pink headphones.
Yes.
And if you're listening on radio, you should come and watch the live show so you can see all the things.
Exactly. Myself, I'm Rob Durant, founder of Flywheel Results, a proud DLA Ignite partner, and I'm not famous for anything yet.
Yeah.
All right. So, as I said, this week on the Digital Download, we will speak with Cheryl Scott. Cheryl stresses if you're thinking you want to be self-employed because it's easier than a job search, that's wrong 99.9% of the time. Let's bring her on and dive into that discussion. Cheryl,
Hey,
good morning and welcome.
Good
Howdy,
morning. Thank you for having me.
You're
Oh,
welcome.
thank you so much for being here. Cheryl, let's start by having you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got here.
All righty. Well, I don't actually remember how I got here. Rob, I think you and I met somewhere networking in the virtual world. I mean, that's the reality now that so much is done online. I've met people from all over the world and it's hard to keep track. And it's been a while since we met. So it was somewhere in cyberspace. But my background, I'm actually on career number 3. I started in recruitment advertising, which is basically help wanted ads, way back pre-internet. So that gives you some idea of I started right out of kindergarten, mind you.
Clearly.
And then I
As we all have.
Of course. And then I sort of jumped to the other side of the table and started helping unemployed folks and became a career coach, which was way more rewarding because I love to help people. I did that employed for about 15 years. I worked with students, both co-op and interns. And then I went to a government agency and was helping unemployed adults for many, many years and loved what I did. Didn't necessarily love where I was doing it. I don't know about where you all are, but in Canada, anytime you're doing anything related to the government, there's way more paperwork and not enough helping people. So at that point, I started a side gig with PPLSI, which, for those of you that are wondering, stands for Prepaid Legal Services, Inc. You can see why we don't use that long name. I just call it Legal Shield. And that's our primary service. And I love it. I get to help people in way more ways than I ever did as a career coach. So while career coaching used to be my primary focus and Legal Shield was this little side gig, they have changed positions and career coaching is now very much a part-time side gig and Legal Shield is the primary focus in my life at the moment. But I love helping new and prospective entrepreneurs because, as Rob pointed out, so many people, while I was a career coach and since, have said, oh, if I don't get a job right away, I'll just hang out a shingle and be self-employed. It is almost that simple, but if you actually want to make money, it's not that easy. I mean, as you all know, the reality is when you are self-employed, you're going to work harder than you ever did for somebody else. The difference is, hopefully, you enjoy it more. So the rest, as they say, is history. The government funding got cut and my job ended. So I am now a freelance career coach. And as I say, Southwest Ontario Regional Manager, Independent Associate, and Small Business Specialist with Legal Shield.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Cheryl, I wanted to start with a foundational question. You say self-employment isn't for everyone, but prevailing wisdom says we should all strive to be our own boss. Why is prevailing wisdom wrong?
Well, I don't know that it is. I mean, to say that you're your own boss doesn't necessarily mean you're self-employed. I mean, if you're a leader, the first person you have to lead is yourself. So even if you are employed, you still have to lead yourself. You're still responsible, right? You have to hold yourself accountable. You're the one that has to show up on time and do a good job and, have a good work ethic and be a good team player or be able to work independently depending on the situation, right? So I think that that's how you interpret that phrase is what matters.
So if self-employment isn't for everyone, who is self-employment suited for?
Well, I can tell you who it's not suited for. If you're thinking you want to be self-employed because you never want to ask a boss for time off and you just want to take endless vacation, well, if you need to make money, that ain't going to work, clearly. But a lot of people don't realize that. They think that being self-employed means you can take lots of time off. You can work when you wish. Well, you can work when you wish, but typically you're going to work more, as I said. Now, if you want to work, nights and weekends as opposed to Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, that's fine. That is entirely up to you. But yeah, who it is for would be folks that have initiative, who are going to hold themselves accountable, who are good at setting goals. And probably one of the most important things is you need to have a why. Why do you want to be self-employed? But more importantly, why do you want to do what it is you want to do? Because if your why isn't clear, you're not going to have enough drive or focus to really be truly successful.
I think that is like a huge point, Cheryl, because this is a problem I see I'm an entrepreneur. I hang out with a lot of entrepreneurs. And a lot of times people are just like, what's the easiest thing I can do to make money online? And you're like, well, I feel like that's different than me being like, okay, I have a young son at home. I want to spend time with him. I have 20 years of experience in marketing and I've seen this problem since I was 23 years old. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to fix it in the time I have and create this flexibility for myself so I can raise my son the way I want to. Like that's a lot different than just being like, I don't really like my manager. I'm going to open a store on Shopify and sell whatever's the most popular thing people are buying online these days. Like, there's a difference there. And I also think, I'd love to hear your opinion on this from this concept of it's easy to start an online business, because conceptually and maybe financially, it's easy to start an online business, but it's not easy to get business online. Like there's a lot of people doing business online. So it's not that easy.
Agreed. Online or in person. I mean, folks often say, I'll just hang out a shingle. Well, that's not going to be enough. In this day and age, hanging out a sign is not enough. If you build it, they will come, but only if they know it's there. So yes, you can, there's lots of software out there to help. You can go build a website. You can throw up a shop on Etsy or Shopify. Sure. But how are people going to find it? Because you're one of how many millions? And yes, a carpenter can choose to work out of his garage. And yes, might get a lot of referral business, but only after he has the first few clients, he or she. Right? So you've got to think about that. As a career coach and now as a small business specialist, I mean, one of the phrases that I use all the time is do what you do best and rely on pros for the rest. Because to be truly successful, yes, you're going to have a product or service and maybe you're creating a widget and selling it on Shopify. Great. Well, what about the rest of the business, the bookkeeping, the marketing, the financial portion of it, right? Yes, it's your business, so it's your money, but if you keep it all, how's the business going to grow if you don't reinvest any of it? But if you reinvest it all in the business, how are you paying rent and eating, right? So there's a fine line somewhere in there, and you can get a business coach who's not only done it for themselves, but done it for many, many clients to help you figure that stuff out. You are going to need an accountant or at least a professional tax preparer who's familiar with your industry, never mind your country, state, or province, because otherwise you will miss tax write-offs that you don't even know exist. Now, I don't know where you all are, but here in Canada, never, ever has anyone ever gotten their tax return assessment back and the government said, oh, you missed a bunch of stuff. Here's more money. No. Yes, they put them there to help us as small business owners, but they don't advertise them because they don't actually want us to use them. Yeah, it's a little bit crazy. And
They do in BC. That's how they roll in BC, isn't it?
I think most governments are similar, right?
I was going to
And
say,
you
I'm in
will
Alberta. It's the same.
You will need a lawyer. Absolutely, at some point or time, and
Can we pick up some of
sooner
the?
than later.
Can we just pick up some of the comments in the?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm just getting my mouse. So, and I actually have a question because Robert Matson says finding your passion is pretty good reason for hanging out a shingle. Now, I've never heard the term hanging out a shingle before, and I wasn't sure if it was basically someone speaking with an Edinburgh accent, so like Sean Connery, where he's hanging out a shingle. So what does it mean? Sorry.
It means hanging up a sign.
Ah, right.
Right. You know, when you think of little kids with
Open
lemonade
for
stands,
business.
often they will take a cedar shingle and just write on it, lemonade 5 cents.
Brilliant. It's not something that we have this side of the pond, or I've not come across it. Yeah. LinkedIn user, the reason why it comes up as LinkedIn user is the fact that you're not giving permissions in LinkedIn to share your data. The first person you have to lead is yourself. I totally agree with that. Robert gives a description about himself, I think, with this one, which is that it's about being awake at 4 a.m. with a problem solving and then taking a nap at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And Bob, I think, makes a great point that this is his second business. The first was pre-internet back in 1987. Oh. And
also in kindergarten.
Yeah, 1987. Like,
that was the lemonade stand.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you imagine putting a lemonade stand out and not getting hit with health and safety now?
True.
Back in 1997, it's now more it's more difficult to differentiate and compete today due to the low barriers of entry. Absolutely, Bob. Yep. Anybody can be an expert.
And I think that there are
easy to get lost.
There are loads of really damaging phrases like, build it and they will come. Well, actually, build it, further to your point, Cheryl, build it and they'll never know you were there, so they won't come. And I think that one of the challenges that we have is often that we conflate being out of work with being a consultant stroke self-employed with being an entrepreneur. And actually, these are loads of... So Tim and my accountant, he uses the term corporate refugee. So, you've been in corporate life for a number of years and then you're laid off and you decide, actually, it's time for a fresh start. And typically, these are clever people with loads of experience, but no hands-on experience of doing the things they need to do. So, you register your company and you build a website and you set up your email and then you go, I don't know how to do bookkeeping. I don't know how to do my VAT return. I don't know how to do a contract of employment. And all of a sudden, not only do you not have any of these skills, you actually don't know who to ask to find these skills in a lot of cases. So you need that business coach or someone that has been through it before to say, why don't you speak to Rob? Why don't you speak to Tracy? Because they can help you with this element or this element of it. But I think that it's really damaging to assume that just because you're running your business, you're an entrepreneur. Again, our accountant, he says entrepreneurs desperately need accountants because the accountant runs along behind them, sweeping up all of the breakages so they don't go to prison. Because entrepreneurs kind of, they are the Gary V's and the Richard Bransons of this world, where they see something and they go, I can see that working.
I should point out that our accountant isn't sweeping up after us.
No, absolutely.
Out of prison was just
although we do like to think of ourselves as quite entrepreneurial. But I think that one of the things is that just because you've got loads of experience helping companies implement an IT system, it doesn't make you an entrepreneur when you do it on your own back for your own clients. And I think that if you're running a business but you're not an entrepreneur, there's almost a degree of shame attached to that, isn't there?
Potentially, absolutely. I've also heard it said that, people will confuse and call themselves an entrepreneur or a business owner when it's really just a hobby. right? I mean, until you start making money, it's wonderful that you're creating widgets, but if you ain't selling any, is it really a business? I mean, yeah, there's a ramping up period, of course, but I think a lot of people, until you start getting all those other pieces in place, until you are marketing, until you are out doing business development, until you have an accountant and a lawyer and all of these things in place, you know, you're not really in business. And certainly if you haven't registered your business or licensed your business or done all of the legal things necessary to get started, you're really not in business and in great danger of getting shut down before you even get started.
Yeah, there's also a lot of really bad advice online. Cheryl, I saw something this week where, because of the market conditions, it's sad that a lot of people have been laid off. And one of these, she's not connected to me, but I saw a comment in, she's decided to take the bull by the horns and set herself up by herself. So she put out a question to her LinkedIn network saying, what apps do I need? And there was all these people from working in corporate jobs laying out all these, and I could just see this, so someone had said you need to have Google Docs and you need to have trying to think of there's Google Docs and as well as something to store your files, and I just made the comment. I said, you've got duplication there, you've got a limited budget, and just because somebody is in a corporate role, they may have Dropbox and Google Docs, but you don't need both of them. And in fact, you don't, if you've got Google, you don't need Zoom and Teams. So all of a sudden you're in this, one of the things that you're trying to do is actually make decisions, because every month you're paying money out for more and more apps. And it was just, and I just had to step in and say, look, you need, and I said, so if you ever need any advice about setting up a company, you do need to talk to somebody who's done it before, rather than relying on your mates.
Absolutely. And somebody who's done it in your country, state, or province, because it varies from place to place, what you need and what you don't need. There are so many myths out there like, oh, if I'm starting a company, I must need to incorporate. Not necessarily. Depends what you're doing, what size you're at, where you plan. It might not be necessary ever, or it might not be necessary now. Could be down the road. But you have to talk to an expert. I mean, Google is great. But let's face it, if we're spending 6 hours on Google to find an answer, A, how do we know it's up to date? B, how do we know it's correct for our state, province, country? And who has that kind of time? Because if you're spending that amount of time, I mean, another great example, my husband, bless his heart, loves to do things himself, leaky tap. Let's spend 6 hours on YouTube watching videos on how, 20 trips back and forth to the hardware store, and 3 weekends to fix a leaky tap. Well, that's great if he wasn't otherwise making money on weekends. But we could have, paid a plumber, $120 an hour, but they would have had it done in 20 minutes. Yeah. You got to think, what's your time worth, right? You have to, when you're starting out, you have to be focused on revenue generating activity. Absolutely. Not spending, 5 days figuring out how to set up your bookkeeping.
Well, and I think this is
Robert
also
Matson says, I'm sorry, Tracy, I just want to read that off in response. Robert Matson says, sometimes the best tool for a job is a check.
Although, do we write checks anymore? Just e-transfer.
Robert's been retro.
Rob is always being retro. I just wanted to bring this back because we had some comments earlier about how entrepreneurs are working 70 to 80 hours a week, and we're should be expected to work more if we're going to start our own business, which I think is also a dangerous narrative for entrepreneurs, because I think it creates space for this type of thing, right? We have to spend 80 hours a week working. And so then we will spend 6 hours a day on Google searching things or watching LinkedIn lives and things like that. And then you're like, well,
watching LinkedIn lives is critically
watching
important.
This LinkedIn live is good, but there's a whole bunch of useless LinkedIn lives out there. I was talking to a client the other day, and she was like, you could spend all day watching LinkedIn Lives just from the people who are in your network going live. And yeah, you can. And you need to use your judgment about where do you go that is helpful for you? Who are the people you follow who actually give you good advice or challenge the advice that other people are giving you, like Tim did? What are you spending your time doing? I see this so often in marketing. Right? People are like, I'm doing marketing. Are you? Because it's not actually accomplishing anything. So you're spending 4 hours a day doing this activity, and it's getting you no visibility. It's getting you no conversations. It's generating no leads. So yeah, we could all celebrate, I work 70 to 80 hours a week. Or we could celebrate, I have a full funnel and I work 25 hours a week. And I mean, that's not necessarily where you're going to start when you're building all of these things. But if you are getting in contact with the right professionals that can help you in this space. And I had a conversation too. I was at a networking event yesterday, and we were having a conversation about marketing, because I don't know, everybody hates marketing. They're like, I don't want to do this. And you're like, okay, this is why there's so many marketing professionals out there to fill that gap. But at the same time, I remember when I was early in my entrepreneurial journey, and I had a business coach who told me I needed to outsource my social media. And as soon as she said that, I was like, I get where you're coming from. I do get that, because there's a lot of people who waste a lot of time on social media. The thing is that I happen to love social media, and that's where I like find my people and my leads. So I want to do that. And you're just now giving me generic advice of things all people should do. And really what I need to do, and the first thing I did was hire an accountant, because I was like, I don't want to figure out taxes ever. Right? I want to just be like, here's the money I made, here's the money I spent, you figure it out. And if there's something that's worrying you, tell me about it. And that's it, right? You worry about that because you care about that. My brain can't process that. So like, there's also this, I think it's not talked enough about in entrepreneurship, of like, what is your gap, right? Maybe you're an accountant and you like to do your own accounting. Well, that's fine. You know all the taxes and all the stuff that you need to do for your zone and your business type. Great. But maybe you hate interacting on social media, or maybe there's another gap for you. So find an expert that does that, and then fill your gap, instead of just saying like, I don't know. I also know a lot of people who are lawyers. You're like, well, I mean, you might find another lawyer, but if you're a lawyer and you're in like energy law and you know all the energy law, then you probably don't need a lawyer, because you're a lawyer. Right? But you might need a marketer or a BDR or something that is filling a gap that you have. So what are the gaps?
I think the challenge though is that when you're starting out, you're ignorant about most of the stuff that you need to do. So like the business coach giving you advice, you need to outsource your social media. Yeah, well that's well intentioned but profoundly incorrect advice.
Right.
And the problem is that if you don't know better, you follow the advice of the expert, and you can make some fundamental mistakes. And I think that Bob made a brilliant comment there regarding the tech needed for business. First, learn how to do things without electricity, then apply tech to automate and augment it. You need to understand what the tech is doing. That's such a crucial point. And I think that's not just true of tech. I think that's true of everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're going to engage a lawyer, you need to say to them, why are you writing this? Why is it saying this? Because they don't understand your business and the parameters within which you operate as well as you do. So it needs to be very much a partnership. And I think that the challenge, particularly with new ideas, is that, I say new social media, the challenge is that you've got a seasoned business coach that has helped 20 businesses grow and exit, and you go, oh, that's fantastic. That's exactly what I want to do. But the world is a very different place now to what it was 5 years ago. And some of those things 5 years ago were not pivotal to the success of a business, and now they are. And the challenge is that if that person is still operating on the thinking that they learned when they were coming up through the ranks, then that's worse than useless now. It's positively damaging to your success in business. And I think that there's very much a kind of case of caveat emptor, buyer beware. You need to be very clear about what you're buying and why you're buying it. And, the challenge with all of this tech stuff, again, is that it's very easy to say, well, I need a CRM, I need a bookkeeping software. I need a video calling software. I need a document storage thing. I need a word processing program. I need a program to do my flyers and releases. I need a telephone scheduling tool. And before you know it, you're spending $200, $300, $400, $500 a month on stuff, and you've got nobody to talk to, no customers, and no strategy. So madness this way lies.
Absolutely. And further to that point, if you go and hire a business coach and they've helped 20 other businesses be successful, that sounds great on the surface. But if all 20 of those businesses were real estate and you're a life coach, you might want to find someone with expertise in your particular field, right? We don't know what we don't know. And I think that's where, as entrepreneurs and small business owners, we should all be helping each other more than not, because you all know folks that I don't know and vice versa. And you don't want to hire the first person you meet or the first person that you like. Yes, you need to like them, but really look around and find somebody who's A, up to date, and B, has expertise in your area, whether we're talking an accountant, a business coach, even a lawyer. If you're an energy lawyer and you're suddenly getting divorced, you might not want to handle your own case, right? You're not going to go to your brother who's a brain surgeon if what you have is a problem with your foot, is a very crude example. Yeah, they're both doctors, but they're not going to be the best. I don't know if any of you saw the movie from the late 80s called My Cousin Vinny. Absolutely hilarious if you haven't, but proof perfect why you need somebody that's not only an expert in their field, but has knowledge and is familiar with your field, right? And yes, starting out, this sounds daunting, but rather than spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on software to do all these things, it may prove in some cases, not all, but some, that hiring a virtual assistant who already has all that software and can do it for you is perhaps a more cost-effective measure, right? In my case, with Legal Shield, we've got a subscription that gives you access to an entire law firm, not just a single lawyer. So you're getting that well-rounded expertise as another example. And that is so, so important because, back to the point, if you're not spending your time on revenue generating activity, whether that's product development or sales and marketing, are you really in business or are you just a crafter?
So along those lines, how can someone determine the viability of their business idea before committing to it?
Research, which they may or may not know how to do, but often it's, don't give up your day job too quickly. Go out and talk to friends and family where you think it might be the greatest thing since sliced bread. You might be the only one that thinks that, or you might discover that 4 other companies have already marketed exactly that. And there isn't room for competition, or you can't do it differently or better, or you need to do it differently, or you will then be in hot water and end up in court because they'll be suing you if you come up with something too close to theirs, right? There's a whole lot of things to navigate. The other thing that I think people don't think about, especially if they've been employed their whole life and then suddenly they're not, or they don't wish to be, they think, well, I need to do something from scratch. I need to create something. Not necessarily. That is incredibly rewarding for sure if you can do it and you've got something where there's a need in the marketplace. The product or service makes sense and it's tried and tested, but you could go purchase an existing business, right? When people think about becoming a realtor, they take the training and they go work for a broker, at least for a little while before they go out on their own. Tradespeople will do an apprenticeship before they start a business on their own, right? In many cases, they have to. You could purchase a franchise, which, buyer beware, there is good, bad, and ugly out there. Yes, for the most part, they're expensive. And you could spend $1 million on this one and get everything you need, including a mentor and advice on location and all of your equipment and deals to buy your supplies. But in another case, you could spend the same amount of ridiculous money and get a logo and a whole book of rules on how not to use it and nothing else. So there is good, bad, and ugly. So buyer beware on that one. You definitely want to shop around. And then there's network marketing, which many people think of as a side gig. or one of those pyramid schemes, and again, there's good, bad, and ugly. The pyramid schemes, thankfully, are few and far between, but they do exist, so you've got to know how to figure them out. But it's like business in a box, because you've got, and same with franchise, often you've got a corporate office that's already come up with the marketing material. They've already done the focus groups. They've already done all the research and know what works and what doesn't work. There's proven systems. Often they're going to give you the technology, the webs, the stuff that you need. So it saves a whole lot of steps. But it's not necessarily for everybody if there's not already a business, a product, a service that you can really get behind. It's got to be something that you're going to use, and you can be passionate about marketing to other people. Right? Think about it. I'm always wary of a restaurant if the chef is super skinny.
I think this all the time.
A hairdresser that has horrible hair.
Yeah, actually, you want that.
Yeah,
no, you do.
So I've just had a look at our profiles, and we've got a huge number of viewers watching this show, much more than normal, I think.
Excellent.
Which makes me think
that Cheryl.
Yeah, well, it could be that. Well, clearly that will be a contributory factor. I think that probably there's an awful lot of people out there either thinking, I'm going to be on the job market soon, I'm going to be laid off, or having been laid off, or sitting deeply miserable in their job thinking I need to have a fresh start.
Or entrepreneurs who aren't making any money.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Pink. You mean all of those Instagram videos telling me how to make $20K a month with only 10 hours of work aren't real?
No, I've just bought my Ferrari.
Tell me it ain't so.
I've just bought my Ferrari by doing that. No, but joking aside, I do think that that there are some golden rules that we've all been through, and things like you have to have a dream. I think Bob said it earlier. You have to have something that you want to do. Because if you're just doing something to earn your daily bread, then you might as well go back and work for someone else. So if you're going to do your own thing, it should be something that you want to do, and you should take advice and listen to what other people say, but you shouldn't let it divert you. And I say that because whilst there is no generic answer to this. When Mark Zuckerberg set up Facebook, there was nobody else in that space. So ultimately, people would have said to him, well, I can't really help you with this because I've not been in this industry before. No one had been in that industry before. And loads of people said, you're wasting your time. How are you going to monetize this? Clearly, he was quite a clever bloke, and he's done all right for himself since he got all of that advice from people. But I think that holding on to the most fundamental things, you need to buy at X and sell at 2X, whatever it is you're buying, your time or your product or your materials or whatever it may be. And you have to have as many customers as you possibly can, because it A, spreads your risk, and B, if you've got 3 times the number of buyers as you can service, you can manage demand with price, can't you? And all of these are things that you should be trying to aim to achieve.
Absolutely. You need 3 things to be successful as an entrepreneur. No matter whether you're doing it from scratch, buying a franchise, whether you inherited a business, or you're joining a network marketing company, you have to have a white hot burning desire. Absolutely. You have to be coachable and willing to learn. And then you got to be willing to do the work.
Yeah.
And if you've got a family, well, then you've got to have their support, assuming you want to keep that family. Because it's not an easy go starting out, no matter which of these avenues you choose, right? And I mean, Facebook and Zuckerberg is a great example. Legal Shield would be another example. I mean, back in the 70s, when our founder started this company, and he said, well, I'm going to charge people a small monthly rate. And at that point, it was $6 a month to have access to a law firm. Today, for an entire family, it's only $30 a month. People are like, are you nuts? How the heck does that work? They must be crappy lawyers. No, it's a cost sharing model. But to think that he took the cost sharing model that's, like crowd sharing sort of, mashed it together with a compensation model that's the same as the insurance industry, chose to market it through network marketing of all things. And then the lawyers still do the legal stuff the old-fashioned way. To put those four things together, who would ever think that would work? But we've been around for 52 years in the States, 25 in Canada. Like, sometimes things can not be logical, not make sense, and still work.
Well, and I think there's like a creativity there, right? Like, it's like, okay, so I see this in insurance and I see this in law, and there's a lot of small businesses who still can't get the legal support that they need because lawyers are expensive. So what if lawyers weren't expensive, right? But we still want to pay the lawyers. So how do we make enough money to pay the lawyers? Because we want to have good lawyers. We don't want to have like all the worst lawyers because nobody's going to buy that, right? Like, I just always see this, like, that's the white hot thing, right? That's because somebody looked at a market and was like, why is it like this? Why does it only have to be like this? Why can't we buy it a different way?
Nobody uses a
sell it
lawyer
different
every
way.
single day,
No.
right? And we're starting to see this cost sharing model. Netflix would be another example, right? Not everybody, it's affordable because everyone's paying into it. And that adds up to a whole lot of money. You know, we have 4.5 million members, all paying. Families are paying 30, businesses are paying anywhere from 49 to 170. They're not using it every day. Some are going to use it more than others, right? Startups should be using it almost every day, but they've got the ability to call and talk to a lawyer and say, here's what I'm thinking of doing. I'm a carpenter. I'm thinking I'm going to start a business out of my garage. What do I need to know? What do I need to do? How much can you help me with? That they're way more likely to start on the right foot and not be, you know, falling into pitfalls. And for sure, the lawyers are going to say, go get a good accountant, go find someone that can help you with marketing and create a website. Yes, there's website builders, but if you spend 6 months making your website, you're going to A, pull your hair out, and B, you haven't made any money in 6 months, and now you can't afford to be an entrepreneur.
Well, okay, so like I want to talk about this because we've touched on it multiple times, and I think there's this assumption, because there's so many free resources now due to the internet, that when we start a business, we don't have to invest any money. And what I'm hearing a lot of us say is that it doesn't have to be a lot of money, but you should expect to invest money to get good advice. So whether that's a business coach, whether that's a lawyer, whether that's an accountant, like I pay my accountant to do my taxes and my accounting, right? That's a business cost. And one of the things I experienced, again, especially early on in my entrepreneurial journey, was like everyone wanted everything for free. And like, but like, one, we can't do that. We don't live in a society where we can just like barter services. I have to pay my mortgage and feed my kids, right? So like I have to make money. And if I, as a business owner, need an accountant, then I should pay my accountant because I don't want to do that. I should pay the person to do that thing. And again, like it's really interesting to me, especially from the marketing perspective, because people are like, well, I want someone to like do my social media. Oh, that costs thousands of dollars a month? No, that should only cost like 50. You're like, well, do you know? So for one, you don't want to do it, right? So like there's a value in someone doing it because you don't want to do it. Two, what's the value in having someone who's good at that, who knows what they're doing, who can do it in a quarter, maybe less the amount of time that you can do it? What is the value of that? Because that is what I should make as a service provider. And I think there is this unfair expectation when we're starting a business that, like, we start a business with no money. I don't have any clients, so I shouldn't have to pay for any of the expertise that I need. Well, maybe we should go into that with like a little bit of a slush fund to assume I'm going to pay for something. Let me be very strategic and ask good questions about what I'm going to spend that money on. But I should expect to spend money, and not just on tech, right? I should expect to spend money on expertise. And probably more than half the time, the money you spend on expertise will be more helpful than the money you spend on tech, because all tech is doing is automating something you don't have, which it's not going to get you any money. But you could have I had this one-on-one coaching session with a strategist that charged $75 for the session, which I was like, and I had a one-on-one before that. And I'm like, I know they add lots of value. This is like super cheap. I'm totally going to get one of these. And it was like way more helpful than a year's worth of my email service provider, which I never used and hated using. Right. And so I think it's important here to talk about this. There is a monetary investment. I think if you're going to create a business that is going to stand the test of time, you should assume that you're going to invest some money in doing that. You're going to invest in some kind of training. You're going to invest in some kind of advice. And no, this doesn't have to be blow your brains out. You don't need $1 million probably to do that, but you do need to invest something. And I think that's an important mindset for people coming into it, instead of thinking like, I can do this all on my own for free.
No. And yeah, if you're starting a business, there has to be an investment, not just time, but money. Absolutely. And that's where a franchise or network marketing company, you're getting a lot for whatever amount you're paying, or you should be. If you're not getting a lot of support and resources, walk away and go find something else. But yeah, starting your own business, there's got to be an investment. I mean, if you're creating widgets, you got to buy the supplies to make the widgets, but you've also got to pay for marketing. And I know, I get it. You're not making money, so how are you supposed to pay these people? Well, bartering does exist. You know, if you've got a website builder and they need bookkeeping and the bookkeeper needs a website, well, at least for the first few months, you could maybe do some kind of trade. Now, how you report that on your taxes, I have no idea. So you still need the accountant.
Ask an accountant.
It can be done. And I've known people that have bartered way more than I ever thought was possible in their lives. It really is possible. You can get pretty darned creative for sure. The other thing is, you know, rely on pros for things that are outside your wheelhouse. For things that you just don't want to do, make it a goal. I mean, when I knew my career coaching job with the government was probably going to end, I thought, what do I want to do next? I thought, do I want to go back to advertising? Well, if I'm going to do that, I need to know social media, because now there's this thing, the internet. Well, I went to school, took an entire social media marketing program, and my biggest takeaway was I didn't like social media. But I have the tools, I have the knowledge. So I'm doing it because it's a necessary evil for my business, but I've set it as a goal. When I hit a certain level, I'm going to hire somebody to look after that for me, because I don't enjoy it. It's work. It's a chore to me. Right? Tracy, you and I sound like we're total opposites on that one. Yeah, I can do it, but I don't want to. Cleaning my house, I can do it. Even bookkeeping, that's record keeping. Most of us can do it. But if you don't like it, make it a goal. When you hit a certain level, that'll motivate you and get you going.
Or you can even say like, okay, I need an accountant. The accountant is going to cost this amount a month. I need to be making at least the amount of money required to pay my accountant and to pay whatever I need to pay myself. And like, I mean, personally, for me, that's always been something that has been really helpful. So I say like, okay, I've got this business coach. The business coach costs $1,000 a month. So I need to be able to make enough money to pay for my business coach, because I have to pay the business coach. And
well,
I think
you could clean the business coach's house as a barter.
Or like I can make a three-way barter with a house cleaner who wants to clean that person's house, but that person needs marketing services, so that we can make it all happen. But I think it's again, I think there's like this problem solving from a like business creation perspective. I see a problem. I'm here to solve this problem. And then like, how can I make that happen? I'm working with a nonprofit right now. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of the government grants that haven't come in for this. And so I'm like, okay, so what else, right? Like where else can we get this money from? We can get this money from industry. What do we need to do to build enough knowledge in industry for people to invest in this? Like we can do that. There's lots of options. And I think it's when you're that attached to a thing and the success of the thing, then you go into like, how can this happen? Like, what is the thing? What training can I choose that is aligned with me and where I'm going to go? Because this is going to help me to get to where I'm going, right? Like that's that fire, that gusto that I think turns a company from a sprout into a business. And if you don't have that, if you're like, oh, I got laid off and I just need to make money in the interim, it's not the same foundation that it takes to actually build a business.
Agreed. So think about, if you're looking to start a business, no matter what it is this your primary focus? Are you passionate, or is this just a side gig to earn some extra money? And treat it accordingly. If you treat it like a hobby, it'll pay you like a hobby.
And it's not bad to have a hobby. I think it's important for us to, like, if you are a painter and you love to do it for a hobby and you can sell your art on Etsy or Shopify and make a little bit of money on the side, cool, right? I have a friend who draws like pet portraits. Right? And then I was like, oh my God, this is genius, because for people who have pets, who love their pets like that. So like I had her get a sketch of my sister's dog for the dog's first birthday, which is a thing I don't understand, but this is like for pet people, they get it, right? And I'm like, that's cool. And she has fun doing it. And she does like, I don't know, 1 or 2 a month, right? And she's an interior designer. So that's her job, but she just does this thing on the side because it's fun for her. But it's also, I had when I worked in corporate, I had a coworker who made cupcakes. And her cupcakes were delicious. She made cupcakes for all the team events. And so many times people were like, why don't you like start a cupcake business? And she was like, because then I'd have to only make cupcakes and I would start hating making cupcakes instead of it just being fun for me to make cupcakes. So yeah, if my friends want me to make cupcakes for the bridal shower or birthday or whatever, like, yeah, I'll do that. But I'm not going to quote you, Cheryl, hang out my shingle, because I don't want everybody to buy. I don't want it to be my job.
Well,
and that's okay as well.
I mean, if she enjoys making cupcakes, she might not enjoy bookkeeping and marketing and all of the other things that are necessary. The carpenter probably loves woodworking, but maybe doesn't like all the other stuff involved with running a business. There's a comment Bob mentioned, as ageism begins to creep into a job search, starting a business is a good way to remain relevant. Yes and no. I want to comment on ageism. If you're thinking of becoming an entrepreneur because you're just not getting a job, if you've applied to a ton of jobs and got no interviews, I'd be having a professional look at your resume and cover letter for starters. If you're getting interviews but not getting a job, do some mock interviews with people that are going to be brutally honest with you and let you know where you're falling short, because there's a disconnect there. Maybe you're not applying to the right jobs.
That's good advice, Cheryl. Very good.
But the other thing, particularly when it comes to writing your documents and interviewing, if you think you're not going to get a job because you're too old, you're too young, you're overqualified, you're underqualified, guess what? You won't. Because that comes across in your demeanor, in your writing. I'm not good enough. You have to have the mindset that I am a good candidate for this job. I don't know if I'm the best candidate because I don't know who else applied. Maybe the company will decide to hire nobody or promote from within. I don't know that, but I am a good candidate for this job. I deserve an interview. And I actually, if they're going to hire, deserve you have to have that mentality. Anything else, you're out. We've got a company locally here that is known for hiring young people. It has nothing to do with age. The reality is they pay crap and young people don't need as much money. That's the reality. I mean, I've talked to them. They don't care about age. But somebody with a family and a mortgage needs to make more money than a 20-something who graduated yesterday, in most cases. Right? It's got nothing to do with age. Employers would love to have good work ethic and, tons of experience, but they often can't afford it. On the other hand, maybe they want to pay less and get somebody who's not got any bad habits built up yet. Right? So whatever you think is your barrier, it will be as long as you think it is. That's all mindset. Now we're on a total other topic and we could talk for another hour about that, so I won't carry on. But just know, ageism, I mean, if you're 80, yeah, they're going to be afraid you're going to croak any day. So no, they're probably not hiring you. But 40 to 50-year-olds, I'm amazed how many people think they're not going to get hired because of their age. That is stinking thinking. So that is not a reason to become an entrepreneur.
It was Henry Ford that said, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. Either way, you'll prove yourself right.
Absolutely. And Wayne Gretzky said you miss 100% of the shots you never take.
There we go. Cheryl, this has been
Canadians
fantastic.
referencing hockey. Shocking.
Imagine.
I'm going to a
Cheryl-
hockey game when I'm in Calgary.
Unfortunately, you're going to have to watch the Flames, who suck right now.
Cheryl, how can people get in touch with you?
The easiest way is probably find me on LinkedIn. I am on there
Excellent.
constantly. You can also find me on Facebook, a little more of a challenge. I've got my maiden name on there, so Cheryl Hines Scott, like ketchup with an E on the end. But those are probably the two easiest ways for sure. But yeah, find me on LinkedIn. My contact information is there. Yes, if you are thinking you might like to start a job or start a business, I would love to have a conversation and see, should you? And it's important that not all of us should be entrepreneurs, because we need people to run our big corporations and teach our kids and police our streets and all of those other things. If you're thinking you just want a side gig, great. That truly is for everybody. You learn so much, and it can
Excellent.
be fun.
Thank you so much. We now have a newsletter. Don't miss an episode. Get show highlights, beyond the show insights, and reminders of upcoming episodes. You can scan the QR code on screen or visit us at digitaldownload.live/newsletter. On behalf of the panelists, to our guest Cheryl, and to our very active audience today, thank you all, and we'll see you next time on the Digital Download.